You don't need to be exceptional to live an exceptional life. You just need to be exceptionally honest about who you are and brave enough to do something about it. That sounds simple. Honestly, it's not. Because most people aren't stuck. They're just not telling themselves the truth. What we've been sold is exceptional means certain things. What does exceptional mean to you? It might mean titles, money, lots of it, status. That's a good one. Status, travel, access. These are things that might have been sold to us that means exceptional in the cultural norms and mores in which we live. But I had a reality in that I thought if I was pursuing some of those things I just listed under this category of exceptional, that I would have an exceptional life. Reality was that something still felt off. And I think herein lies a real tension. And I don't think I was alone in feeling this. I'm guessing that some of you have felt this as well. That I wasn't failing, I was succeeding, but yet it didn't feel like my life. And hopefully I said my life with enough emphasis because my life is mine. Okay, I get it. But I want to make an important point. And that is, I need my exceptional life to be exceptional to me, not to anybody else. And this took me a long time, quite frankly, to get my head around. And in many ways, in fact, I want to introduce a concept that we talk about at my company More. And it's this feeling of numb success. We're putting a name to something that I think is prevalent in the community of highly motivated, high achieving, driven professionals. Certainly in the corporate setting, but I don't think it's just in the corporate setting. But I did observe it and personally experienced it there. And it's this notion of numb success, where you are high on achievement, but low on aliveness. And it's almost like a seesaw in a way that the more the achievement side of the seesaw goes up, the more the aliveness side of the other side of the seesaw goes down. I don't want to create an exact relationship between those two in that way of a seesaw, but just for a visual, for those of you who are driving or walking or whatever you're doing as you listen to this episode, to just visualize that achievement is spiking, but aliveness is starting to shrink. And that gap is numb success. Therein lies numb success. Do you feel that in your life? Do you feel that while your achievement side of the ledger is pretty strong, if you really are honest with yourself, exceptionally honest, dare I say, is your aliveness where you want it to be? Whatever age you are and whatever you have going on, doesn't matter. That aliveness, I think, is really, really important to look at and look at closely. And gosh, you don't need a 2-time Widowmaker survivor to tell you how important that aliveness is while we are making trips around the sun. Hugely important, in my personal opinion. But over the past couple of years, I've been trying to put language to this. And honestly, I think it's why I wrote the book, which, by the way, is coming out very soon. And I cannot wait to share it with the world. In it, I write, you don't need to be exceptional to live an exceptional life. You just need to be exceptionally honest about who you are and brave enough to do something about it. When I wrote that, I was writing it to myself. I think anyone who's written or knows authors, so much of what we write comes from our truth, from our soul, from our lived experiences. When I first started writing, even dabbling with fiction writing on the side as a hobby years ago, I was in denial that the characters I was writing about had anything to do with me, my life. when in reality, I actually had a friend who taught writing, and she said, these are what's coming up is you. These characters are you. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But now with some time in the writing saddle, as it were, I do believe that that is all very true. And so much of what comes onto the page is from our heart, is from our soul, is from our experience. So when I wrote that, I was writing it to myself. It was coming from deep down, because as I reflected, as I wrote this book, it's because I built a life that had looked exceptional by those other lenses of exceptional we talked about earlier. But I wasn't honestly, well, can I say honest? How many times in one sentence can I say the word honest? But I wasn't honestly being honest about the fact and the parts of it that weren't mine anymore. It being my life, that weren't mine anymore. And I think this is the real barrier, not a lack of clarity, although for some of us there is a genuine lack of clarity. You've been super successful and you've been grinding and you have a ton of responsibilities. You have a duty to deliver to your colleagues, to your clients, to your family, to your neighborhood, to your community. And we lose sight of what's the clarity for me in my life and what I want. So some of us, do struggle with clarity, but others of us, we have the clarity. But I think what we do trip up on is this lack of honesty. And most people already know what's off. They just don't like or want the consequences of admitting it. Have you ever done that? Have you ever been exceptionally honest with yourself? I mean, it's hard to do because it's easy for us to put in caveats and buffers and to make things look swimmingly in our lives. But if you really take the courage and the time to be radically honest about what's working and what's not and where you want your life truly to be, it's your life, not anybody else's life. It's your life, what you want it to be. It's hard to do. And then it's even harder to contemplate consequences of moving from where you are today in the reality of your life to where your life could be if you were bold and brave enough to take steps towards what you believe would be an exceptional life for you. So what do? Well, we stay in roles that don't fit. We perform instead of live. Life is like performing, and we're performing for others and performing everywhere in every aspect of our lives or many aspects of our lives, and we're not living. And I think that is such a crucial thing. And I'm staying over this point a bit because I just want to hover on it, and that I want to get back to living and not performing. Because if I'm performing, I'm doing that for somebody else, right? Not doing it. And part of it I'm doing for me, but to live on my terms in the way that I want to live for my life, I probably have to dial down that performing aspect of what I'm doing. And then there's this sense of knowing the consequences or what the potential could be, but there will be consequences, but not acting. And it's like just going full ostrich head in the sand. I talk to a lot of people who would like to do a number of different things that they're not doing right now. And almost to a person, their answers are very consistent. I can't give up the money. I can't give up my routine. I can't give up my identity. Who would I be without this job? And I guess in some ways, I don't want to discount the duty that we feel and the sacrifices and compromises we make in our lives to take care of others and our families and put bread on the table and all those things. I don't want to discount that, but I do want to hone in on this notion. Are we brave enough to tackle the consequences to get you closer to what would be truly an exceptional life for you? If your exceptional life, and by your definition, isn't making way more money and having way more things and having way more trips to cool places and whatever, then maybe stay on that path. But if you want a different path that could have access to some of those things, it's just life will be redesigned a bit. There are the consequences, and I don't think people want the consequences to even admit that there's something different that they're interested in or they could have. It's really interesting tension there. There's part of the book where I stopped trying to be polished and just told the truth. I wrote, "We get one life, one pass, and most of us don't lose it all at once. We lose it slowly, quietly, in meetings we don't want to be in roles that no longer fit, in lives that look right but don't feel right. Somewhere along the way, we stop choosing and start maintaining. That wasn't theory. That was, I believe, my life. And I didn't think anything was wrong because nothing was obviously broken. I was successful. I was needed in the professional capacity. I was functioning. But frankly, I wasn't alive. I wasn't fully alive. And sometimes I wonder, in fact, when I was first invited to be a guest on a podcast that never actually aired, a friend of mine who's a real soul level thinker wanted to do this podcast, and he asked if he could interview me. And I said, absolutely. It would have been my first guest podcast, but it never was published. And he threw me with a question in the course of our conversation. He said, was your heart attack, this was after my first one in 2016, was it the best thing that ever happened to you? I was like, wait, what? How could that be the best thing that ever happened to you? But as I reflected on it, my answer at the time was, yeah, I think it was. And I say that because in this context, it grabbed me by it being the heart attack / life, grabbed me by my lapels and shook me like I've never been shook before and asked me, where are you living? Is this the life you want? So honesty without action, though, what could that be? If you are exceptionally honest with yourself, but you're not brave to take the action, what would you feel? I think you'd feel some level of torture, painful. This is who I am. This is who I truly want to be. This is where I want to go. This is my 5-year plan if I could do it, but I'm not. I'm going to stay over here because the bathwater's warm and I feel safe and it's not full of change. And that is why people stall out. They do the work, they do the soul level insight and like, I want to change my life. I'm going to mix things up. I'm going to maybe pivot my career or redefine how I engage with my career that I have and want to keep, but I'm not going to make the change. I think that's akin to torture. But why do people stall? Well, there's fear of change, right? Like fear trumps so much. And there are many people who pull back from the notion of change. It's terrifying. The unknown, especially as you get older and you're more comfortable in your life that you have, like, whoa, I'm going to upset this apple cart now. What's that going to look like? I know how things are now. I know how to get things done now. I know how to get paid in this role now. But if I go do this thing over here, like, whoa, what's that going to look like? There's identity risk. It's another reason why people don't change. It's like, I couldn't possibly give up my identity as a whatever managing director of this thing over here to run a summer camp for kids. For many people, that's just too far of a chasm to cross, and they just are not comfortable with it. Way too much risk from an identity lens. And then, of course, the comfort traps. Well, if I am an MD of some important company doing really cool things, or senior vice president or executive vice president of a really cool company doing really cool things, that pays me really well. If I'm going to make this change, whoa, I'm going to have to give up some of the things that make my life comfortable, like a country club, season tickets to my favorite baseball team, or whatever it is. I'm going to have to pull back. I'm not going to have my gym membership, maybe. These are reasons why people stall: fear of change, identity risk, comfort traps. I literally get it. I had a second chance after my first heart attack in 2016. And while I thought I was going to make some great changes and get into the world of helping others, what did I do? Well, it took me a while to admit this, but I hit the snooze button. I did leave my employer at the time, and I basically jumped out of the frying pan into the fire. That's how powerful avoidance is. I had the mother of near-death experiences, the full-blown, fully occluded widowmaker heart attack. Mortality rates are extremely high. I had a reckoning with my soul that I needed to make changes in my life to go do something to help and inspire others and get out of the world of strategy in financial services. But the power of avoidance is real, people. The struggle is real with it. I've dealt with it. I've danced with that devil. I get it. But bravery isn't about blowing up your life overnight. I will never suggest that. For certain people in their circumstances and their risk appetites, maybe that makes sense. It wouldn't be my first recommendation. But it's about making honest moves towards being brave enough to do it, to be brave enough to take time away from your normal routine, your normal social activities, to go pursue something that is of great importance to you, that might get you out of your comfort zone, that might make you feel a little squeamish, but it interests you a great deal. That's an honest move and even a courageous one. And I would applaud you for doing it. In my last solo episode, I presented an exercise for people to do. And it's tough. And I'm going to reiterate it here. It's kind of the obituary gap, if you will. You write your current obituary as honest as you possibly can. And then once you've done that and you feel good about it, you write another obituary, your ideal obituary, how you wish it would be when your time is up. And then compare the two and see the gap. That gap, by the way, that's your life waiting for you to be honest and brave. So ask yourself, what do you already know is true that I'm avoiding? What's one small step I can take this week to get me moving in that direction? And do not assign a judgment on the size of this proverbial step. Does not matter how big or small it is. It's the fact you take one is what counts. And from that, I can assure you, you will start gaining clarity and confidence in what you want to do and where you want to go. So if I had to land this whole plane, I'd say you don't need to be exceptional. You don't need to be extraordinary. You just need to stop pretending and performing and tell yourself the truth. But ultimately, just as important as that first part is to have the courage or the bravery to act on the truth. Because the real risk isn't that you won't build an exceptional life. It's that you'll build one that looks exceptional and never be honest enough to admit it's not yours. That's where it starts, not with more achievement, but with the truth. Bring back aliveness. Make aliveness great again. I'm your host, AJ Jones. Thank you so much for tuning in today and taking time out of your busy days to listen to what I have to say. It's great to have you here. If you're interested in what we do at More, please check us out at bemorealigned.com. And if you want to reach out and talk about anything regarding the show, ideas, guest pitches, whatever, please reach out at hello@bemorealigned.com. I would be thrilled to hear from you. And if you want to write a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you write your reviews, I'm going to be looking for them, and I think I'll read some on an upcoming episode. So thank you for those if you write them. Thank you for being here. I can't wait to speak with you again soon.